Hi, I'm Kat.
I'm Arden 13.
Welcome to our show, World Tiger.
Building Dragon.
Today we are continuing with some of World Anvil's summer camp prompts.
Summer Camp is a program set up by the World Anvil team to promote world building as well as the community in general.
There'll be a total of 33 prompts all throughout the month of July, so if you're looking to win some prizes for your submissions, don't miss out.
World Anvil is a free in-browser tool that has everything that a world builder, a GM, or a writer may ever need.
They also have some really incredible subscription options, so to make sure to check those out as well.
They're totally worth it and affordable. If you're interested, please consider checking them out. But in any case, I think it's time we got to the prompt. What is the prompt?
Today we get to write about a settlement that is famous for a particular resource, product, or item.
Okay. This one's broad.
It's really open-ended. It can kind of go almost too many different directions.
Is there such a thing as too many different directions?
Maybe with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. But for you guys at home who are unaware of what Kat and I might be doing here, we have given ourselves some parameters in order to complete this summer camp project. Each of us has 30 minutes to answer the prompt.
Each of our submissions have to be at minimum 300 words.
After the 300 words and our 30 minutes are up, the two of us will come back together and share what we came up with.
Some of our best ideas have come from collaborations.
That they have. Ready for this?
Yes. Time skip!
And we're back.
We're back.
How'd you feel about this one?
I like the format of this one. I just couldn't. It was another one where I couldn't get the right idea in my head until the very end, where I was like, light bulb turned on, and I had so much to write down, and I didn't get as much written down. But I'm still excited for this one. What about you?
I think you put it the best and said that this one was incredibly broad.
Yes.
This one was very broad, and kind of to me, the prompt really spoke to talk about a city. And then we got to pick, which of my cities am I going to talk about?
Which resource, which product?
Sure. So I felt it was very broad. I went into it and I had a really fun idea, and I think I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, I enjoyed it, and I won't sugarcoat it anymore. Would you like to go first?
Sure. So I wrote. I didn't have a real idea of what I wanted to start with. So I decided to go with something small. Start small and move big. That's kind of how I world build in general. So I picked out a little seaside settlement known as Perlshaw, and it is on the southern coast of Halar, which is I've talked about it before, kind of deserty.
Goddess of War territory?
No, it's the goddess of nature, but it's
okay.
It's the part of nature that's more harsh than it is nice and bright and beautiful, where Fu Glen is. Either way, it is a small seaside settlement, only a population of about 1,500 people. It's just a little town, so they mostly focus on, as far as the resource that they provide, they are really well known for their crafting of fine jewelry. Because they're on the coast, and right where they sit is underneath a mountain, basically, where the city kind of sits up onto a mountain. So they have access to a lot of the gem exports, as well as pearls, where Perlshaw comes from. And so they're known for creating their fine jewelry. So you have a lot of halflings, a lot of gnomes, a lot of dwarves, very few humans that kind of reside there, but it's mostly just a small jewelry city. As far as the history, I was able to go into a little bit about how originally it was a small trade port city along the southern shores of Theatrum, but once people started to realize the wealth of oysters that were there and how easily it was to get into the mountain and get some of the gems and jewels out, a lot more people started to actually settle down in that city and make their livelihoods there.
Nice.
As far as geography of the city, like I said, it kind of sits up onto a mountain, so you'll have almost different layers of a city. I know that I wanted to kind of have a large waterfall that runs through the main portion of the city, so you'll have little large freshwater springs that kind of I'm making a motion, but I don't really know what I'm trying to say. But it's just like pools of water that kind of trickle down back into the ocean. Yeah. I want to draw this out and make it, because I have a really great visual in my head, but not a lot of ways to say it verbally.
Mm-hmm. I get what you're saying, though. I get the image that you're trying to convey. I get it. I don't know about that.
But yeah, I just wanted to make a small little town that was known for jewelry. I know that I'll have, as far as world building's concerned in general, I'll have like a lot of the finer crowns, a lot of the finer jewelry that you'll find throughout Theatrum will be built and crafted from Perlshaw. So they will have that name to them of, most of the...
They'll have that clout.
That clout.
Prestige.
Right. I'm trying to think. I know that I really enjoyed one of the sections that they had on here, as far as World Anvil is concerned, is they had two separate sections. One that was more concerning, like, government. How would this be run? That sort of thing. But they also had... I think it was guilds and factions, so even like another layer of how this place would be run. And I am kind of teetering between two different thoughts as far as guilds. I can't decide if I want it to be like, this is the gnome guild, this is the dwarven guild, this is the halfling guild, or if I want it to be guilds that were set up based by like the specific gemstones that they work with. So you'll have
the Ruby Guild, the Pearl Guild,
right,
the Sapphire
guilds that are
Guild.
more favoring certain gemstones. That's something that I'm kind of trying to figure out how I want the guilds to be run there. I know that the guilds will be set up based on ranks, so the most favored guilds, or the most popular ones, will be closer to the shore where a lot of the exports come from. And then as you get higher up, it'll be less favored guilds, maybe not as nice areas as it would be towards the shores. That's about it as far as I came to with this settlement. There were a couple sections that I wanted to fill out, but I couldn't really come up with ideas for. Like, let's see, the government, I don't really have the government set up for Halar yet, so I couldn't really, like, give an exact, this is how it's going to be run.
Sure, that's fair. But you've at least got, like, a really solid footing. You understand why that city is there.
Right,
Which, to be frankly honest, can be one of the most difficult things to really, when it comes to world building, is justifying why a city is there and why it has achieved the rank of a city, the size of a city.
Right, and that's why, like, I start small with a lot of the things I do in world building, and I branch out. And so answering that why question of like, okay, yes, there's a city that specializes in jewelry, but why? Why is it there? Why is it needed there? And I think having that reasoning of, well, it's on the side of a mountain, and it's right near the ocean, so there's going to be lots of oysters in that area. Perfect. It's just kind of two things that work really well together as far as crafting their jewelry.
Nice. So, I'm very interested to know more about Perlshaw. And I'm actually, maybe you already said exactly what the reasoning of these pools were, but do you mind going back into that? The waterfalls into the smaller pools?
Right.
What was that all about?
One, I think it's a really pretty visual. Just the idea of you've got different pools of water. Part of it, I want it to be just as far as the geography. That's where it was beforehand. Now, I don't know how oysters work exactly. Can saltwater oysters go into freshwater? Let's say for my world's sake they can.
I'll just say I don't know the answer.
Yeah, let's say that they can. For my world, they can. And so what they'll do is they'll open up the oyster, take the pearl out, and instead of throwing it back into the ocean, they'll just throw it into one of these little side pools to make it easier to grab and fetch later.
So they can make more, or they can just use for other means?
So that it's easier to grab them for later purposes. Like, they'll throw them back into these pools, and then they'll make another pearl, and they'll take the oyster out, take the pearl out, throw them back in. Kind of like a farming technique?
Yeah, that would be, yeah. Because then you could, while those guys are hanging out and
They're cooking.
Cooking, you know, a new pearl. They go out into the water and. Yeah, it's like the rotating crops sort of situation,
kinda,
but rotating pearls.
I don't know.
Nice. I really also like the detail that you added in, like the most ornate crowns and jewelry of, like, you know, family jewels and so on and so forth from royal families will come from here. Perlshaw. Mm-hmm. That's a really fun detail.
But I like it. I have a cool visual in my head, but that was all I pretty much came up with for my design.
Cool.
What about you? Looks like you've got a bit more written down.
Yeah, I'm going to try to paraphrase because I realize that I ramble a lot. That's just my nature. I get to talking about something and I don't stop. So I did the city of Fey Raal. It is one of 4 cities in the country of Miradan, which Miradan is up in the northern reaches of Omith. It used to be a settlement, a colony of the Elven Imperium, and then at one point, some plotline nonsense happened, and it just kind of was condensed from a very expansive colony to just these 4 cities, which they still have a great expanse of land, but what kind of sets Miradan apart from everything else is that it is kind of a country that acts as sort of a conservatory for the Feywilds. The Feywild that exists on the material plane on Ellecrid itself. And Fey Raal is kind of like the height of Fey magic's scholarly study. Fey Raal is not a large city by any stretch of the imagination. However, where it lacks in size, just sheer expansiveness, in its footprint, it makes up for in its height. It is the tallest city in Miradan, maybe the tallest city in the world. Haven't figured that out yet. Specifically because of the towers that reach up. Now, not going into a whole lot of details to get bogged down in, like, the government or what have you. I kind of do very similar things when it comes to governments to across the board. There's probably a city council or what have you. The way that Fey Raal works is that since it is a epicenter of study, scholarly study, the city itself is divided into districts. Mm-hmm. And there is you have your city chairman, district chairman, who all sit on a city council. So that is kind of the way that Fey Raal runs. They are obviously subservient to the capital city of Miradan. But the interesting thing that I liked about Fey Raal that I was able to come up with, and what the export, the famous for some sort of a thing, is the fact, is their study, specifically for the fact that within the boroughs, the city chairman kind of acts as the mayor of that area, the chairman of that district or what have you, but in amidst the boroughs are no less than a dozen universities, magic arcane universities, and the universities have near autonomy in the city. They can pass their own legislation, they can write their own bills, they have their own personal police force. The universities kind of have their own thing going on in Fey Raal, and the presidents of the universities are in and of themselves like seated official, like, democratic powers.
Right.
So that was the thing that I thought was really interesting to go into Fey Raal.
So why have a council?
Because the universities don't run the districts. The city council runs the districts.
But what you're saying is they could if they wanted to?
They could if they wanted to. Okay. But Fey Raal itself has its own police force. Mm-hmm. They have their own military. The universities have their own private militaries. It's a weird situation. Okay. It's a very strange situation, and there's some, like, historical context that I really haven't completely fleshed out yet as to why it is the way that it is. But I just kind of really like that idea of, like, every district has their own, like, we are the city councilmen and we run this borough of Lexington. Right. It is a goodly place, but don't go across that street because that's a university.
Right.
And
they have their own
They have their own rules going on. Also, just to add to that level of, I kind of wanted Fey Raal with the whole idea of the university, the contention between the universities and the city council. I went to school in a city that had 3 universities in it, and just the unspoken tension between them was, I thought, hysterical. I thought that was just a funny dynamic that, like, the locals all understood and that students kind of understood, but the people who didn't know, and it was just funny. So that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to work out here in Fey Raal. Another thing also I wanted to mention, I guess, in what Fey Raal is also famous for, because they do all this research with the Fey wilds and the Fey magics and stuff like that. They have access to a lot of these really awesome Fey magic based bows and magic focuses and stuff like that.
Okay.
They do a lot of arcane research. So druids or scholars of magics, arcanists, wizards, what have you, who have a particular interest in the Feywilds would come to Fey Raal and study amidst the Feywilds in a controlled, quote-unquote, environment.
Controlled Feywilds.
Yeah, the only question is, which university do you attend?
Oh boy.
Because you best believe they have some real tense rivalries with magic games, maybe some Quidditch. Who knows? I don't think I'm gonna throw Quidditch into this. But yeah, the architecture is very reminiscent of, like, your stereotypical kind of elven architecture, I wanted to say. With the exception that Fey Raal does not... It's built up, not out.
Right.
So it's very much... I'm thinking, like, structurally, there's a lot of things kind of neo-Gothic, like flying buttresses to, like, support different structures and stuff like that is kind of the thought that I had, but hadn't really gotten a chance to flesh things out. I know she's looking at it right now, and there's just, like, large blocks of text, but a lot of the large blocks of texts does not include specific details, which I'm not gonna lie is kind of bothering me. But I'll go back and work on that at some point.
I really, really like the idea of all those colleges, like the dynamic not only just between the universities, but also between the council members and the universities. My brain is just working with, like, a ton of different storylines or story arcs or just characters in general that you could throw in there to, I don't know, flesh that out. Or having, 2 students working in a group and they find out later on that, like, you went to this college, well, I went to this college, and, like, this dynamic that forms between the 2 of them. I don't know, I really like those.
The one thing that really got me thinking about this, because initially Fey Raal didn't have these universities, but when I have a little bit about Fey Raal, I know that they're an epicenter of, like, arcane study, but, like, I stopped on guilds and factions, and that's where my mind clicked.
Yep.
And I went, oh, there's gonna be schools of magic that are rivals against each other, and oh, you know what would add some more fuel to this fire? Let's give them autonomy. So,
oh, no.
We'll see what happens.
But yeah, I also really, I think something that I envy about your world building is you have a better sense of architecture than I do, just in general. I can't think of that sort of thing, and so thinking about, like, a city that's going more up than out, or, I'm thinking of, like, bridges between 2 different towers, like, really high up, and I don't know, I really like that. But yeah, I like what you came up with.
Well, thank you. I also like Perlshaw. That's a really quaint little cute...
It's a cute little town.
It's a cute city.
Versus this is like... This is a big town.
Well, there's value. There's monetary value there, and that's something that I think a lot of people, when it comes to world building, kind of overlook, and they just... To me, at least, I will admit this, when I think of, like, where the jewels come from, the precious jewels and the really intricately crafted jewelry, I immediately think dwarves. I don't think a little halfling town by the seashore, and also, I'm sorry, dwarves in a mountain.
Right.
Like, that's where my mind goes. Like, the images of Erebor are just ever present in my brain, but when you tell me that it's a town on the seashore with these kind of, like, gliding pools, and there is a mountain present, but most of the jewels and most of their work comes from the the sea itself, and especially with their abundance of pearls, that's a really cool look to me. I really dig that.
But yeah, unless you had anything else, that's all I got.
I don't believe so. There's a lot of text here, but I don't need to go into it.
Okay.
That's all I got. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know in the comments below something that you enjoyed about today's video, or if you have an idea that you're willing to share.
If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit all those buttons that everyone else bugs you about. We'd love for you to join our lunch table.
And go check out World Anvil if you're interested.
You guys have been great. I'm Kat.
I'm Arden13. I'm still waiting on that ramen.
We'll see you next time.
Bye!